Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. How does this book hold up 1 year after its release? So I've just finished reading this. I got the paperback version. And I like the cover, I like the color scheme and everything. And I gave this book 3 stars. And but before I get into my book review, don't forget to like and subscribe and consider becoming a Patreon. So, Sally Rooney, this is her fourth novel and it was very much anticipated. It came out and there was a lot of hype. As usual, when it comes to Sally Rooney books, she's pretty much the go-to literary fiction author right now, and sort of like the quintessential millennial voice. And this book it's above average. It's fairly good. It's My feelings about it are kind of mixed because the first quarter of this book was like a 4 star read, and I thought we was gonna sort of maintain at that level. But then it just slowly crescendoed down to 3 star, mainly because of like the middle book, like really the meat of the book, the middle parts where really things should have really escalated and whatnot. But I'll get to all of that. It's been eons since I've read a Sally Rooney book, and I think the last one I read was her last release, Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I think that's a 2.5 star read. That's just fairly decent. It has its ups and downs. And I was wondering, would this better Beautiful World, Where Are You? And I was hoping that it wouldn't be like Conversations with Friends because that was super pretentious. I really, really, really did not like that. And again, after the first quarter of the book, I thought I would like this more. Um, Rooney, as always, and she said this, she likes to write about the mundane, and it seems like a leopard doesn't change her stripes because we are getting the mundane with this, the ordinary, the normal, which I absolutely like. And I came into it knowing that at least. And I think some people, when because Sally Rooney's heavily critiqued, right? Some people love her, some people hate her. And I think one of the reasons why, besides her writing style, is the fact that she just writes about the totally mundane. And people may not like that. But I did, I fairly enjoyed what we got. I got through it at a decent pace, and so I can't really complain. So what is this about? We follow two grieving brothers. Peter, who's about 32 years old, he's a lawyer who is widely liked, but he has so many issues, sort of behind the scenes. And we follow also his younger brother, Ivan, who's about 22 years old, and he's a chess prodigy. And it seems as though he's autistic as well. And I think it's never sort of like explicitly diagnosed or mentioned. His his personality and the way he comes across is mentioned a lot, and he has a lot of sort of like internal reflections about himself and how he's perceived by other people. But I think he is autistic, and we follow them both as they try to make sense of their lives, relationships, and life's many lost moments. Additionally, their respective relationships with each other and the women in their lives play a major role, and it reveals how each struggle, each love, and how to live with living authentically, whether it's within normal relationship dynamics or not. And we also get a whole bunch of other people, and I'll talk about the characters in a second. But the themes we get in this book, there's sort of subtle grief, there's despair, arrested development is quite the theme, and I respected that theme because that's very relevant to society today. It's sort of like there is a sort of forced arrested development due to economic troubles, amongst other things, and just sort of degraded culture, I should say. Themes also of like the fallout of subpar mental and physical health. We do get a lot of that, and how health has affected many of the characters in this book. It's just another layer on top of their history, their their profession, their flaws. So I did like that. It wasn't it wasn't preachy. It was just there and it was constant. And again, Sally writes about the mundane, so it's just real life. Sometimes it blows up, and sometimes it's just a lot more subtle. We also get themes of complicated love, both old and new, complex family dynamics, and more. So Rooney again did a very good job with the themes and how she portrayed them and how she sort of packed them in into this what 430, 400, yeah, 440 odd pages. So she did well. So I've mentioned, moving on to the characters, I've mentioned the two brothers, right? But we also need to mention the women. Um, we have Sylvia, Margaret, and Naomi. Sylvia and Margaret were my favorites. Um, I did think that Margaret was a bit too secretive at the beginning, but that's mainly because she's an older woman. She's 36 and she's with Ivan, who's 22. And Ivan doesn't have a lot of experience with women. And it kind of shows because and she also has her own sort of baggage as well. And I think Ivan's immaturity shows because he really should have got her to work through it a lot more, I think. And he was steadfast about he wanted their relationship. Like he never wavered from that. But there was just certain attachments to her old life that Ivan really should have got her to, you know, get rid of, I thought. Sylvia is 32. She's Peter's old girlfriend, best friend, and everything in between is quite complicated with them. She suffered from an accident that means that she's in pain a lot, and so she's not able to be intimate. That's the reason why they broke up, and we kind of seeing them post accident how they are together, um, sort of like platonically and intellectually, but not intimately, but just not romantically. Again, that's a complicated that's a complicated sort of dynamic. But then add on top of that, Peter's other side, his other thing, who's also 22 years old. Her name's Naomi. She's a university student. And Naomi seems to me, and I might be wrong, but she seems to me that she represents like sort of like the OnlyFans sort of type girl. She does have a history of that sort of lifestyle a little bit. And her and Peter, it seems at the start, just playing games with each other. You know, Peter's the wealthy solicitor who can help finance her lifestyle and more than maintain his own. And Naomi's the one that, she offers one thing only. And, you know how it is. But she reminds me, like, when I first sort of like really clocked her and who she was and what type of woman she was, she reminded me of this Benny the Butcher line from his song Big Dog with Lil Wayne. And he said, I got two hoes on my line and I don't hit neither back because I ain't with it. One fuck for money, one fuck them want some money, so it ain't no difference. And that line literally just popped into my head once I realized who Naomi was and how she operated. But yeah, that's just one random thing. But move on to the pros and cons of the book. There are pros. There are, I like the initial setup in the first quarter of the book. The ending was beautiful and quite touching. It was ambiguous but with closure at the same time. I really did like it. I thought it was a fitting end to the story that we got. And again, again with Rooney and her endings, it leaves a lot of room for things to happen in the future. It still could go wrong, it still could go right, it still could just literally stay the same. And I do like that about Sally Rooney's endings. They especially the normal people one, God, that was fantastic. But yeah, I did like this. Moving on to the cons. This book starts off well, as I said. Then it's a very slow, irrelevant crescendo downwards. It reminded me of The Children of Men by P.D. James. I read that, I think, this time last year, maybe a little bit before then. And I hate when kind of books do that, when the beginning is promising and then the author just doesn't do much with the concept. The Children of Men was one of the most disappointing books I've ever read in my life. It was supposed to be a lot better than it was, and it's a shame that it ended up being the way it did. I also didn't like Peter's POV at times because the writing style was just horrible. The clipped and sort of short thoughts and sentences weren't it. It. I think Sally did it to read like it portrays Peter's anxiousness. I didn't like the feeling. I didn't think that she needed to do it. Again, that's sort of like she did a blend of like the sort of fragmentic syntax slash stream of consciousness method of writing. And it doesn't always need to be utilized. Again, Jose Saramago, the Portuguese author, I've read two books by him, Blindness and Death at Intervals. Blindness is one of the greatest books of all time. It is the gold standard of post-apocalyptic books. And that has, the stream of consciousness for even way more than Rooney's. He doesn't use speech marks, barely uses full stops. It's just commas and he's just going and going and going. But when you're writing a dystopian post-apocalyptic book about blindness, it actually adds to the reading experience because of what these characters are going through. Whereas with his book, Death of Intervals, I gave it, I think, 2.5 stars or 2 stars. That was one of, again, like The Children of Men, a very, very big disappointment. And the stream of consciousness writing in that book didn't make sense. It really hindered the story. And again, even I had some issues with the characterization and the plot in that, but the writing didn't help. In that book, Death or the Grim Reaper, whatever, goes, she stops killing people, and so people become immortal, and they think it's a beautiful thing. But then we see the fallout of it. And yeah, the stream of consciousness writing didn't do it for me there, and the fragmented syntax in this for Peter's POV at times wasn't it. Then lastly, I think the last con I'll mention is that the flashbacks weren't as well done as they were in Normal People. They were there and they were numerous, and you gotta be reading carefully to make sure that you're not totally confused. But I just preferred them in Normal People, and maybe like here's the thing with that as well. Take that critique with a grain of salt, because Sally Rooney is writing the same way. It wasn't any different. It's just that the Normal People story was better. The flashbacks, I guess, were better, and the characters also were better. But is what it is. So Intermezzo a year later, it's. I think this just fits in nicely into Sally Rooney's discography. Again, for me, she's a net positive overall. I got one that's below average, Conversation with Friends, one that's average, Beautiful World, Where Are You? One that's above average, Intermezzo, and then one that is one of the greatest books and one of my favorite books of all time, with Normal People. So Sally is in a net positive with me. So there's that. I will forever read what she writes because of Normal People. It is what it is. I always I'm quite baffled by Sally Rooney fans who have other books of hers above Normal People. That just doesn't make sense to me. Normal People is in a league of its own. Is several leagues above anything else she's written. But hey, that's just me, I guess. It is what it is. Anyway, guys, again, don't forget to like and subscribe and consider becoming a Patreon. Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Did you like Intermezzo? Did it do it for you? Do you plan on reading it? How do you even like Sally Rooney? Let us know down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.